Dr. Sardar Muazzam, as the Managing Director of National Energy Efficiency and Conservation Authority, what initiatives and programs can be undertaken to enhance energy efficiency in Pakistan, and how can these efforts contribute to country's energy security goals in the days to come? Yes, please. Sure, please. Yes. Yeah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Dr. Nadeem, and the esteemed panelists, and ladies and gentlemen. I think I'm very grateful for this panel, and especially Dr. Nadeem for understanding the importance, and especially the slot where I am, because Dr. Shahjahan Mirza Sahab and Tosif Sahab after me, so I think I have a very good opportunity to explain to this forum and especially highlight some of the important aspects. We always say this very simple thing, that producing 1 unit of electricity is always expensive than saving 1 unit of energy. So I think the way we see the current area and the sector, demand side management, how we can effectively do the energy efficiency and conservation is something that is very important with us. And I think this is where we see that the potential for energy efficiency and conservation is in the country is very high. I'll just quote a very simple thing, that in the winter we have a base load of 10 to 12,000 megawatts. And when it goes to the summer, we touch it somewhere around 32,000 megawatts. Where this energy goes, where this electricity goes. And it's very simple. All what we are putting, our energy sources, or diverting it to the cooling of our buildings, the fans and the air conditioners. So I think earlier we had NERCON, and now with the National Energy Efficiency and Conservation Authority, the goal is towards moving towards that area, like how we can effectively, doing the peak demand management or the peak shaving, that is possible along with these other agencies or organizations, and definitely the base load will increase, and that's where we want to move forward. So I'll just highlight some of the previous work that has been done in last 3 to 4 years, because I took the charge of National Energy Efficiency and Conservation Authority in November 2019. And then I'll explain that we have already been successful in developing the National Energy Efficiency and Conservation Policy 2023, and we also have an action plan which is about to be approved, because currently we have the initial approval. And I just want to highlight and answer Dr. Nadeem's question, that what initiatives and programs can be undertaken. So this is just a very simple review by the World Bank about the whole globally analysis of the countries in terms of their energy access, in terms of the renewable energy, in terms of their cook stoves, and energy efficiency and conservation. I think one of the important aspects that in 2019, when we started, we were standing somewhere with the cumulative score of 28 points, with a number of these indicators which are available on this SMAP RISE reports. And as of 2021, the score has increased to 36. So there has been a considerable work, and as of 2023, the score will be doubled, as we can see it, because of the higher agenda, the priority given to energy efficiency in the country, especially with the current government. So National Energy Efficiency and Conservation Policy is, as NEECA has been given this mandate, is to create a culture of conservation and efficient use of energy resources in Pakistan. And I think one of the important aspects to highlight, that with the total primary energy supply of 19 or 87 million tons of oil equivalent, our target is to save 9 million tons of oil equivalent. And I think that targets, we need time by 2030, and that aligns with the net zero and the other targets which we will be, maybe in the future, we will putting in place along with that. Another, the CO2 emissions reductions, and I think this is a very interesting number, that 6.4 billion US dollars, once all these measures are put in place, that can be the saving from the demand side possible. And I'll show you in some of the next slide that exactly what are the areas as been asked, the programs to be undertaken for energy efficiency and conservation in Pakistan. So some of the sectoral approaches, I think these are the 5 sectors where we see that there is a huge potential for energy efficiency and conservation, and the whole transition towards green and clean energy in the country. Energy sector and transport, if we see collectively, is more than 75% savings in this sector is possible. And then we have a major share of the building sector, the industrial sector, and the agriculture sector. I think the current the context which is just been set, the higher tariffs. So the question is, what is the solution? It's a very important thing. Higher the prices are, more the incentive for energy efficiency and conservation in this society. And I think this is why it's important to look into that aspect, to look into the aspects in terms of the management practices, in terms of technology, and in a number of other ways, like how we can effectively lower our energy intensity, and then we can be competitive internationally. So along with that, we were given a task on 28th April to develop energy efficiency and conservation action plan. And that action plan in itself has 29 priority areas. It has detailed goals, interventions, key performance indicator, timelines, and federal and provincial stakeholder responsibilities across 6 sectoral areas. So I'll just highlight that even when we're looking into it, we developed or designed this aspect, that how detailed it should be, that we should have a details of the task, who is responsible, and how we are going to achieve it. This document is already available on NEECA's website, but it's just to highlight some of the key features and then to share the details of some of these aspects which we are going to take. So just a summary of some of these aspects in industry, building, transport, agriculture, and energy sector, and then there are some cross-sectoral areas as well. We've also looked into the regulatory side, the capacity side, and then the advocacy part of it, because some of these aspects which are related to regulatory side or administrative actions are quick to implement, and we've already been working on it, that it's possible and think we can get more benefits out of it in a very short term. So I'll just go through quickly in these slides, and then I think in the question answer session we delve into the details. In the industrial sector, these are some of these interventions or the programs that we are considering, that even the minimum energy performance standards for industrial motors, the tune-ups for gas and coal-based industrial boilers, the tune-up of gas-based industrial furnaces, and these tune-up plus FO-based captive gensets. So if you look at the total impact, that is $490 million US dollars. Similarly, if we go forward into the building sector, you'll see a minimum energy performance standards which are not in place in this country. And if you look into the basic appliances, just as air conditioners, refrigerators, gas domestic appliances, energy audits of the building, which can be a big area for investment in the future, and then the solarization of the pumps, that is another area which can, with a cumulative effect of $467 million US dollars, and it can be more because we selected a smart part of it. And then the transport sector, again, I think we see a huge, great potential of 1.6 billion US dollars, where you can see the vehicle tune-up centers, fuel economy standards in Pakistan, they're totally missing in the transport sector. The tractor tune-up centers, where the agriculture sector is relying heavily on that, and then shifting of EVs and charging infrastructure. These are some of the demand side transport sector interventions which has been highlighted. Similarly, in the agriculture sector, we have highlighted aspects of multi-purpose tractors used for rice cultivation, diesel tubers, tune-up programs, and these different interventions has already been identified, which can be saving of $545 million US. Energy sector, again, I think we have been working on the industry, with the transport, with other areas, and especially with the captive power plants, we can see a huge potential. And I think Tosif Saab can also highlight this point, that when we were working on some of these areas, we see, I mean, this is one of the very calculated things, but more savings are possible. And I think this is NEECA can support as well. And these are some of the sectoral areas, especially in terms of how we can develop a financing mechanism, the energy service companies model, and also the investment from the other countries, because there is a huge potential in terms of retrofitting, in terms of building design, and in terms of transport sector, that this investment can be utilized, especially using the public-private partnership mechanisms. So I think we need a lot more in terms of the capacity, in terms of understanding of like how the energy efficiency is possible, and especially under the CPAC program, we can see that there is a potential that Chinese technologies, knowledge, and this sharing of understanding between two countries and the investment has a huge potential for Pakistan. Thank you very much.
So, no, I think we are running short of time now, and we can continue to have this discussion over the lunch or in the evening at the tea. So, I mean, let me conclude. I think we had a very good discussion on the, I mean, potential of the green and clean energy and clean technologies. And just to say, I mean, the way net zero, efforts, net zero carbon efforts and decarbonization of the global value chains is happening, and then the way this concept of green grid is taking some traction in the global arena, and the way electric machinery is going to be changed from, I mean, the diesel run or the petrol run engines to now electric run motors. So, I mean, this is bringing a kind of a lot of revolution. And according to McKinsey's research, I mean, by 2050, there is a possibility of $12 trillion worth of investments across the globe. So in that context, I think we missed one aspect, and if, I mean, anybody from the worthy panelists could also highlight that how to develop this carbon credit market is an important aspect to, I mean, look after these investments in the green and clean technologies. And that, I think, would be a kind of a great impetus, because if any private entity, because all this discussion we had, that was on a macro level, but on the micro level, the micro agents, the small firms, or where they had this possibility to have this carbon neutrality in their operations, so then how we can reward them? So there is an international mechanism to reward them. But the problem is that how they can sell these credits, how they can, I mean, first of all, capture these credits. They have then credibility in that regard. I mean, a 2 minutes response on that would further, I mean, enlighten the professors and the researchers, so that they can carry forward their research in these domains in the days to come, and could also bring a lot of insights for the policy making and for the firms who are operating in these domains.
Yeah, Dr. Sahab, I can quote my experience. You see, this market is already developed, and there are two projects which I have done directly. You know, one was from the platform of Engro, and that was power generation using the permeate gas which was being flared, causing a lot of pollution problem. But at that particular point in time, the 1 unit was 18 euros. And then thereafter, as the market really did various transactions, the second project I did from the platform of Hubco, that was, you see, Lare. So all those projects are really, you know, getting benefit of this carbon trading. But the issue is that the unit price of any, you know, carbon credit has reduced so significantly, because because of, you know, the issue that, you know, more and more renewable energy is replacing the fuel for the fossil fuel. So I think the market is fully developed. There are traders, so who can you can really touch base with them. but the end of the day you see the, whether it is going to be creating some value for the transaction.
Dr. Mohsen, you.
I'll just, I think especially as Dr. Nadeem highlighted this point for researchers and the student, I think basically understanding the framework is very important, that what kind of mechanisms are there? Do we have this carbon pricing? Do we have cap and trade mechanisms, or that kind of mechanisms that how we can trade? And I think initially whenever any product which we project we conceive, we have this question of additionality, like why we are doing it, and can we save any carbon credits from it. So I think that is initially in most of the projects which we are designing at any level in the government, we generally don't do it, because initially the concept in the government is that it's a costly thing. So once we assume that it's a costly thing, and then the second assumption that there will be the carbon price for the carbon credits will be lower. Maybe right now, yes, in the past, but currently the prices are high. So, no, it's high right now. So the prices are increasing, especially there are new projects, new mechanisms are coming in. I think there was earlier, if you look into the past of Pakistan history in one of the governments, the petroleum development levy was named once as a carbon credit in Pakistan. So I think there was this kind of mechanisms. If you look into the broader country context, the spending by the government in terms of planning commission and all the PSTPs and others, because UNDP is tracking through one of their studies how much is going into the mitigation, adaptation, and in the related areas, and then how much we are getting from the petroleum development levy. So the spending is much bigger than this cost. So I think there is a case that we are doing the carbon pricing. That is one of the mechanisms. And I think second, especially the trading mechanism, especially for the market, that is a question mark. I think in one of the studies previously I done being part of this carbon pricing, and then also the CPAC greening, I think we definitely propose that under the CPAC, because they have the carbon markets, there can be mechanisms where we can integrate the carbon pricing mechanisms or the carbon markets, or they can be developed in Pakistan and integrated under the CPAC mechanism under this whole framework. So there is work available, and also the recent developments, especially in the COP, and there is other work going on that provides a very promising grounds that we can look into. Recently we, as this is one of the case which I want to highlight, I think the colleague from the audience has raised this question, like what is the solution for having electricity, and then energy saving, another part which was highlighted. So we just did this simple maths, like in the winter we have demand of 10 to 12,000 megawatts, and in summer we reach somewhere 32,000 megawatts, where this demand comes from, and that demand comes from fans and air conditioners. So 70% of the fans, and then the remaining 30% air conditioning. So it's all about cooling. The question is what kind of fans we are using in this country. So most of these fans are using 130 watts. So if we make them convert or shift them to an efficient fans program, which is less than 30-40 watts, we will be saving somewhere around 4,000 to 5,000 megawatts. And that is the peak we are talking. Most of the load shedding is during the peak months, maybe 86 days in a year. So I think all these expensive plants, or all the plan throughout the year we do for these 86 days. In some of the plants we use less than 86 hours. And I think that is the study from the lumps. So I think that's a very important thing, like how we see from the demand standpoint of view, and then how we do this part. And especially with this fan proposal that we prepared, we included the carbon pricing mechanism or the carbon credits into it. And there are private firms who are willing to do everything for free and then join because they will get their portion on every credit once the project is approved. So there are many mechanisms available. I think this needs to be explored in the country's context. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mazam. So as conclusion remarks, I would say that there is a lot of potential. Just to give you an example, in agriculture sector, recently, as Mirza Sahab has already pointed out, we have Prime Minister's 10,000 megawatt solarization program. Chinese government is quite helpful to set up a kind of some manufacturing capacity in Pakistan as well. We had discussions 2 weeks back in China, and hopefully in the last week of July we are expecting a very high level delegation from China, and some of the conclusions are going to be made in that regard. Just to highlight the kind of its ramifications and the advantages of the green and clean technologies. So some of the, with the help of World Bank, we had this period project in government of Punjab. Sindh is also doing a lot on that regard. And most of the tube wells in the rural areas are being shifted from diesel or electricity run to solar based tube wells. And could you imagine, I have some little background of agriculture as well, I'm from the South Punjab, and then the cost to irrigate 1 acre of land has reduced from 13,000 rupees to roughly 2,000 rupees. But it has side effects. Every technology has some ramifications in negative context as well. And that is what is going to happen with the level of water, then the groundwater table, if this you could say that checked abstraction of the water is going to be continued for next 5 to 10 years. So that's a kind of you could say that the caveat to these kind of technologies as well. So there are pros and there are cons, but we need to be very careful when treading this path of new era of energy, and this transitioning from fossil fuel to the new technologies. Eventually this path is not so easy to tread, because a lot of complexities are there. A lot of behavioral changes would be required when it comes to the savings of the through the conservation and through efficiency, as Dr. Muazzam pointed out. And similarly, lot of changes in the regulatory frameworks, which require a lot of attention when it comes to navigating the political economy of these shifts and changes in any countries like us, the emerging countries like us. So with these thoughts, we conclude this session, and hopefully we'll continue to have these discussions in the next sessions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Nadeem, for coordinating this insightful discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, now I would like to request Dr. Muhammad Nadeem Javed, please come forward for presenting the conference mementos to esteemed panelists. Mr. Khalid Mansoor, sir, please. Dr. Sardar Muazzam, sir, please.